Hi everybody! Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for a Punched Out Thursday to Die For. In a Punched Out Thursday to Die For, we use our punches and our dies and we create a scrapbooking layout or another paper crafting project. And in this layout, I am scrapbooking the photo that's sitting off to the left, and I will explain that in just a moment. I'm using a piece of heavyweight cardstock. It's 120-pound smooth white cardstock, and I am applying some sprays to it. I've already used some white gesso, and I've coated the background with that. And the sprays that I'm using are the Prima Color Bloom 2 spray in Spring Dandelion. And I'm also using a Lindy Starburst spray in the color Yellow Rose of Texas. I'm using the packaging technique and I'm using both colors on the plastic and I am applying them around where I know my photo is going to be. Earlier I traced around where I wanted my photo to be with a pencil so I would know where to apply the sprays. I also put some water droplets over the sprays once they were dry. I used my heat tool to dry them, but I didn't include that in the video. And then I rolled paper towel over it to lift up some of the color. And that creates a cool effect. You could see the little water droplets and it makes some more variation in the color. And I just love doing that. It's such an easy way to create extra texture and variation in the sprays. So once everything was dry, I decided I wanted to add some more color to the background. I'm using a piece of Punchinella and it is what's left over once they punch sequins out of plastic, and I think it makes a really cool stencil. I had never heard of this before. I saw it in a Rebecca Moore video that I was watching a while back, and so I picked up some black Punchinella and I'm using it as a stencil as she did. I'm using some Distress Oxide in black soot, and I am trying to make some variation. In some areas I am applying more of the ink, and in some areas I'm just applying it very lightly. And now I'm pretty happy with the way that things are looking, so I am adding some white splatters. And this is watered down white acrylic paint, and I'm putting the splatters on top of the areas of color that I've already created. The photo is a close-up of a sculpture that I saw when I was with my family at the Botanical Gardens, which is located in Bronx, New York. Sometimes the Botanical Gardens has installations of artists' work and they incorporate that work into the flowers and plants that are there. And so this one amazing artist named Chihuly made these beautiful glass blown sculptures, and this was just a super close-up on one of them. And although you can't tell what the sculpture looked like overall, you could see how amazingly detailed these sculptures are. So I really wanted to scrapbook this particular photo. I had cut it out for a different layout that I was making, but it didn't end up working with the papers that I chose. So I'm sorry I was talking while I was stamping. I did some stamping in the background with two different stamps. One is a script stamp that I have in my stash that is a rubber stamp, and the other one is a Prima stamp. I don't see a name on it, but I'll put the information that I do have in the description box. The collection that I'm using is a Simple Stories collection, and it is called Simple Vintage Lemon Twist. I don't buy a ton of new collections. I try to be very selective because I do have a lot of scrapbooking supplies, but this was one that I just had to have. I saw so many people make such gorgeous layouts with it. I love the color scheme, so I picked up some of this collection. And I found the photo a little bit tricky to scrapbook because of the colors in it. They are yellow and yellowish green, but I think that this is a collection that goes well with that photo. So I used my Creative Memories circle cutters to cut out some circles. I cut a black circle for around the back of the photo. I used some Fun Stamper's Journey dies. They're called Pennant Fun. And I got this idea from Ronnie Sue Scrapper. She had picked them up from Spellbinders, and I decided I would pick them up too when they had them on sale. I think that having triangles is a really good addition to my stash of dies. I wanted to have a couple of pieces of pattern paper, and I just wanted a few little strips So I use the branding strips on some of the papers and then I attach them together so they would be a little bit longer and they would go across the whole page. I'm going to attach them down to a fairly small piece of white cardstock. First, I'm inking the edges with the black soot Distress Oxide. And now I'm just going to attach them down. And you won't be able to see the seam where the two pieces of paper meet in the final layout. I was a little worried about that initially, and I could have just cut a small piece of paper from some larger pieces of paper, but I really hate to cut into 12 by 12 inch papers just to cut out a really small strip. I love buying the 6 by 8 inch pads so that when I'm making a layout like this, I don't have to cut into big sheets of paper, but I did not think to buy it for this collection. And that gray and black striped paper, that actually is from a 12 by 12 inch paper. I forgot about that. The rest of them, though, are branding strips. So the only thing that I'm going to pop up on this layout is the photo. So I cut out some fun foam and I attached it to the back of the photo, and then I used some ATG adhesive and I put it down where I had drawn that circle in the background. Before I attach those strips of paper down, I want to trim them a little bit. I want to put that unit of strips tucked underneath the bottom of the photo. And so I'm just trimming the strips on either side, and I want to make it interesting. So I make some of them longer, some of them shorter. I don't want any of them to end in the same spot. So I also have to trim the cardstock that's behind them. And then I've already inked the edges of most of them, but because I cut them, I had to ink the edges of the ends. I take out my T-square because I really want to make sure that the strips are straight. I definitely don't want to have them crooked and have to pull them up again later on. So I make sure that they are not crooked, and then I layer those triangles and those circles on the background again, and now I'm going to attach them down. So I cut that large circle in half. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make the triangles different sizes. Because I made all of them from the same pattern paper, I thought that maybe I should make them different sizes, and I was thinking about trimming two of them, but I finally decided that I'm just going to keep them the way that they are. I wanted to add a little cluster up on the top. I thought that maybe I could use the other half of the circle that I used on the triangle at the bottom of the layout, but I didn't end up using that. And now I'm going to use some of the Punchinella on the page. And I used my scissor and I just cut the Punchinella out very roughly. I didn't try to make it straight. I actually wanted it to be a little irregular on the end. So I tucked a small piece of the Punchinella underneath all three of the triangles, and on one triangle I put the Punchinella on the right, on the other one I put it on the left, and the other one I put it on the bottom. I thought that would provide some balance on the layout. So I was thinking that half a circle that I had on the top was too large, so I cut a smaller circle, and then I cut a smaller triangle and a smaller piece of Punchinella. But I want everything on the layout to be cohesive, so I did all the same things to the circle and the triangle that I did to the other circles and triangles on the page. I inked the edges of the circle, and I put a black mat on the back of the triangle. And then I layered those up and attached those down, and I made sure that a little bit of the mixed media that was on the background was showing. I use my ATG gun and I attach the Punchinella to the page. I just put a little adhesive on the back where it was tucked behind one of the triangles. Now I have all of my major elements attached down to the page, and I want to start embellishing, but before I embellish the layout, I want to put my title down. I don't want to make the mistake of leaving that to the end because a lot of times there's no place left to put it. So I have this set of letters. They are stitched letters, and they seem to be just the right size. I spelled out Chihuly. I cut the letters out twice, once in black and once in one of the pattern papers in the collection. And I'm inking the edges just of the pattern paper here. And I'm just going to slightly offset the pattern papers with the black paper in the background, and I just thought that that would make the letters pop off the page a little bit more than if I just use the pattern paper. So I use some gel glue and I attach those letters together. And then I'm going to place them on the page right under that small cluster. And I'm combining the word Chihuly with the word love. And that is a wood veneer piece that I had in my stash. So the title will be Love Chihuly. And I will arrange and line up those letters off camera because it takes me a while to get them straight. And that's definitely not something fun to watch. But what I am doing now is I'm adding some embellishments to the page. I start off with some of these foam stickers from the collection. I'm adding butterflies and hearts mainly from this sheet. There are lots and lots of little hearts, so I'm adding them in mainly yellow, but then I also, later on, I'm going to add one small black heart. So I like the addition of the hearts. I put 2 hearts on the bottom triangle and then 1 on all the other triangles. And now I'm going into the ephemera pack. I think that this is the Floral ephemera pack. There are 2 different packs for this collection. And I'm tucking some flowers in a couple of spots around the layout. I thought that it would be appropriate to have some flowers on here, considering that this exhibit was at the Botanical Gardens. I really like that big butterfly off to the right. I have some little butterflies, but I thought that this big butterfly went really well in that spot. I wanted to have some florals kind of peeking out from behind the photo, so I trimmed one of the ephemera pieces and I used some of the flowers on the bottom and some of them on the top of the photo. I also tucked a few little flowers behind the small triangle at the top. And I always spend a little bit of time fussing around with the embellishments, and I usually reposition something. I wanted to add some enamel dots to this layout. I thought that enamel dots would be a good choice because the black is very bold and I like the way the black and the yellow look together. So I put some enamel dots in the centers of the hearts. And now I'm using some watered down black paint, and I wanted to put more splatters, but I realized that I didn't have very much paint left in this bottle. So I did just a little bit of splattering, and then I used the straw that's on the inside of the bottle and I just touched it to the layout in a couple of places to make a couple of black dots. There aren't a whole lot of black splatters on the page, but I do like the addition of the few that I put on there. And I forgot to mention I used some evergreen bough and peacock feathers, distress oxides, and I layered those on top of that piece of wood veneer that says love. And I think that that color matches the collection, or that combination of colors matches the collection pretty well. And for the last touch, I add a black heart to the title, and that completes this layout. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you so much for leaving comments. I'm behind on the comments, but I'm starting to catch up a little bit, so please be patient with me. I do really, really appreciate the comments. I love reading them. Please also check out in the description box, you'll find links to the channels of Ronnie Sue, Kathy, Sonia, and Dorothy, who are also creating layouts for a Punched Out Thursday to Die For. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I will see you again next Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.